Hello, I am Ryan.
Hello, I am Amy. Welcome to Listen to English Podcast.
Today's episode is Learn English Fast That Feels Like Cheating. You know, I think a lot of our listeners are probably really interested in how to learn English more effectively and quickly. We all know that English is such a valuable language to know, can open up so many opportunities. But, sometimes the learning journey can feel like a really, really long road.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even for the most dedicated learners, right? They can run into roadblocks or feel like they are not progressing as quickly as they would like.
Absolutely. But what if I told you that there were some ways to speed up the process? And we're not talking about, any kind of magic spells or anything like that. It's more about using smart strategies that really tap into how our brains naturally learn best. It's almost like finding these little shortcuts that make the whole journey a lot smoother and maybe even, dare I say, more enjoyable.
And what's interesting is that a lot of these strategies actually go back to the most natural ways that we learn, especially when we're younger. Think about how kids pick up languages, right? They don't start with textbooks and grammar rules.
Right. They learn by listening and imitating. They just kind of dive headfirst into the world of words. And that actually brings us to our first big game changer, and that's actually ditching the grammar grind, at least initially. Studies show that actually for adult learners, focusing too much on grammar rules right from the start can really hinder your progress.
It appears that for adults, immersing yourself in the language and developing that intuitive feel for it is much more effective, just like kids do. It's like, imagine trying to learn a musical instrument by memorizing every single music theory concept before even touching the instrument. You would be so overwhelmed, you probably wouldn't even want to play at all.
Yeah, it's like a perfect analogy. Instead of getting bogged down in all of the technical stuff, wouldn't it be more effective to start by playing simple, familiar tunes? And in the same way with English, you can start by learning common phrases and expressions. So instead of, stressing over the past tense or conjugations and all that, just try remembering a phrase like, yesterday, I went to the store. You'll be surprised that your brain will actually start to naturally pick up on those patterns without you even realizing it.
Exactly. It's all about training your ear and your intuition to recognize those patterns. It's not about overthinking all the rules.
Okay, so let's move on to a principle that can be applied to so many areas of life. But it's especially helpful when it comes to learning English. And that is the 80-20 rule. Basically, this rule states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. So how does this apply to learning English quickly?
Well, studies show that a small percentage of English words, probably around 20%, make up the vast majority of everyday conversations. So by focusing on mastering these high-frequency words, you can unlock a significant amount of both comprehension and fluency. It's like having a master key that opens almost every door in the language.
So which words are we talking about here?
Some of the most common ones are get, have, make, and do. They're so versatile, and they pop up constantly in all kinds of different contexts. And you'll be surprised by just truly understanding how these words are used. It can really improve your English skills.
We were talking before about thinking in English, but what if we could actually dream in English? Is that even a real thing?
It might sound kind of like a sci-fi movie or something, but studies have shown that it actually is possible to train your brain to dream in a different language.
Yeah.
And it's not about, consciously controlling your dreams or anything like that. It's more about setting the stage for your subconscious mind to work with the language even while you're asleep.
That's amazing. How does that even work? Do you have to, wish really hard for English dreams or something?
Well, it's not that simple exactly, but it's all about immersion. The more you surround yourself with the language during the day, the more likely it is to seep into your subconscious and show up in your dreams. It's like if you spend all day listening to English music or watching English movies or even thinking in English, your brain is constantly processing the language even when you're not aware of it.
So it's like creating an immersive English-speaking environment even when you're sleeping. That's incredible. It's like having an English tutor that lives in your head 24/7.
Exactly. And the best part is that it's completely effortless. It's a way to reinforce what you're learning during the day while you rest. Your brain is still working on the language even when you're asleep.
This is seriously mind-blowing. It's like a secret cheat code for language learning. But let's get practical for a second. How can our listeners actually start using this in their learning routine?
The key is to really saturate your mind with English before you go to sleep. So read a couple pages of an English book, or listen to an English podcast, or even watch a short English video. Just activate those language centers in your brain before you drift off.
I love that. It's like planting little English seeds in your mind and letting them grow while you sleep. I'm definitely going to give this a try.
I'm sure you'll be dreaming in English in no time. But while we're waiting for those dreams to kick in, let's look at some more practical techniques that can really boost your fluency and confidence. And one really effective method is called shadowing.
Shadowing. That sounds interesting. What's that all about?
It's actually a pretty simple but powerful technique where you listen to a native English speaker and try to copy their speech as closely as you can, almost like a shadow that's following their every move.
It sounds kind of like that parrot technique we talked about earlier, but maybe a little more advanced.
You got it. Shadowing takes mimicking to a whole new level because you're not just focusing on the words themselves, but you're paying attention to the rhythm and the intonation and even the physical movements of the speaker.
So it's not just repeating words like a robot. It's really embodying the way they speak. That's so cool.
Exactly. The goal is to literally become a shadow of the native speaker. You want to capture the essence of their pronunciation and their delivery.
That sounds like a fun way to practice. I bet it's way more enjoyable than reading grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary lists.
For sure. And the benefits are huge. Shadowing can help you develop a more natural and fluid speaking style. It improves your pronunciation, and it can even help you understand the subtle nuances of English intonation.
So how do you actually do shadowing? What's the best way to get started?
It's pretty straightforward. Choose an audio or video clip that has a clear native English speaker. It could be a TED Talk or a podcast episode or even a scene from a movie. Then listen to a short segment and try to repeat it word for word. You want to match the speaker's intonation and rhythm as closely as you can.
It's like a real-time game of copycat. But the goal is to master English fluency. I love it.
So as you get better at it, can you make the segments longer?
Exactly. You can gradually challenge yourself with longer and more complex passages. It's about building your skills and confidence over time.
This is a great technique. I can definitely see how it would speed up your pronunciation improvement and fluency.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to internalize the natural flow of the language and make English feel less foreign and more familiar.
So we've talked about dreaming in English and shadowing native speakers. Those are both really cool strategies. Are there any other advanced techniques that we haven't covered yet?
Absolutely. Let's talk about active listening. It's a skill that a lot of people overlook. People think of listening as this passive thing, but that's not really true at all. Active listening is a deliberate and conscious process where you're fully engaged with the audio that you're listening to.
That makes sense. So what's the difference between active listening and just hearing the words? It's about going beyond just catching the words. You want to actively try to understand the meaning and the context and even the subtle nuances of what's being said. You're not just passively absorbing sounds. You're processing information and making connections.
So it's like listening with a purpose. You're trying to really understand and get something valuable from the audio.
Exactly. It's about engaging with the material on a deeper level, not just letting it wash over you.
It sounds like this would be super helpful for improving comprehension, especially when you're listening to native English speakers who might use slang or speak faster.
Definitely. And it's also a great way to learn new words and get used to different accents and speaking styles. You can even pick up on little cultural cues.
So how can our listeners practice active listening? Are there specific techniques to make it more effective?
One technique is to listen to a short audio clip. It could be a news segment or part of a podcast or even a TED Talk. Then try to summarize the main points in your own words. This forces you to really pay attention and figure out what the key takeaways are.
That's a good idea. It's like testing yourself to make sure you're not just hearing the words, but actually understanding them.
Right. You can also try listening for specific details like dates or names or keywords. You could even challenge yourself to try and guess what the speaker is going to say next based on what you've already heard.
Those are all really great strategies. Active listening turns something that seems passive into a really engaging learning experience.
It's all about being present and paying attention when you're listening. You don't want the words to just go in one ear and out the other.
Okay, we've talked about active listening, which is a powerful tool. What other techniques can help us take our English skills to the next level?
Let's talk about self-talk. I know it sounds kind of strange, but talking to yourself in English can make a big difference for your fluency and confidence.
Talking to myself. Isn't that something that people do when they're, well, a little lonely or maybe a little out there?
Not at all. Self-talk is a valuable tool that athletes and performers and successful people in all kinds of fields use. For language learning, it's about creating a safe space where you can practice without being afraid to make mistakes or feeling self-conscious.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a private conversation with yourself
Yeah.
where you can try out different words and phrases and grammar structures, and you don't have to worry about what other people think.
Exactly. And the more you practice self-talk, the more comfortable and fluent you'll become. It's like giving your English muscles a workout in the privacy of your own mind.
So what are some ways that our listeners can incorporate self-talk into their day? How do you make it feel more natural and not awkward?
Oh, there are so many ways to make self-talk part of your life. You can try narrating your daily activities in English. So, for example, if you're getting dressed in the morning, you can say, I'm putting on my blue shirt and my black pants. Or if you're cooking dinner, you can describe the steps you're taking in English.
That's a great idea. It's like turning everyday moments into little English practice sessions.
Exactly. You can also use self-talk to think about your feelings. Like if you're feeling stressed, you can try expressing those feelings in English. Or if you're excited about something, you can describe your excitement in English.
It's like giving your inner monologue a voice, but in English.
You can even have imaginary conversations in English. Pretend that you're meeting a friend for coffee or discussing a project with a coworker. Just have the conversation in your head and use English to express your thoughts and ideas.
I think this would be really helpful for people who don't have many chances to practice speaking with others.
For sure. In today's world, we have access to more tools and resources than ever before to make learning English easier and more engaging and even fun. There's language learning apps and online dictionaries and translation services. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the whole language learning landscape has changed. It's not like the old days with those giant dictionaries and, limited access to native speakers. Now we can connect with people from all over the world and immerse ourselves in English right from our phones or computers. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So let's start by talking about language learning apps. They've become super popular in the last few years, and for good reason. I mean, they offer this really gamified and interactive way to learn new words and grammar and even pronunciation.
Yeah, I've personally found language learning apps to be so helpful. Like for building my vocabulary and practicing grammar, they break things down into these bite-sized lessons so it doesn't feel overwhelming. And you can do them anytime you have a few minutes, like waiting for the bus or standing in line at the store.
Exactly. They fit into our busy lives so perfectly. Learning doesn't have to feel like a chore anymore. It can be like playing a game. And the best part is that many of them are free or at least really affordable, so almost anyone can use them.
Right. Some of the most popular ones are Duolingo and Babbel and Rosetta Stone, and they all have their own unique features and teaching styles. But don't feel like you have to limit yourself to just those. There are tons of other apps out there for different learning styles and levels, so experiment and see what works best for you.
Definitely. And while language learning apps are great for building a solid foundation, we can't forget about the classic resources like online dictionaries and translation services. They've come a long way from the clunky versions we used to have.
Oh, I remember those days of lugging around those heavy dictionaries. So much easier now. You can just look up a word on your phone in seconds and get the definition and hear the pronunciation and even see examples of how it's used in real sentences. It's incredible.
It really is. Websites like WordReference and Google Translate are lifesavers when you come across a word you don't know. It's like having your own personal language assistant right there in your pocket.
That's so true.
And there are apps like HelloTalk that connect you with native speakers who are learning your language. So it's a win-win for everyone.
It's like having a global network of language partners at your fingertips. You can chat and share cultural insights and get feedback on your progress. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to immerse yourself in the language and experience the richness of different cultures. And the great thing about online communities is that they're accessible 24/7. So you can connect with people whenever you want.
Wow, this is incredible. Technology has really opened up a whole new world of language learning.
It really has. The key is to use technology as a tool to help you reach your goals. Experiment with different apps and websites. Find the things that keep you interested and motivated. And never stop exploring.
Well, folks, there you have it. Our deep dive into learning English fast has come to an end. But remember, this is just the beginning of your journey.
We've given you a ton of strategies and tips to help you speed up your progress and have fun while you're doing it.
Now it's up to you to take these tools and make them your own. Remember to enjoy the process, stay motivated, and never give up on your dream of mastering English.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one sharing your own tips and inspiring other learners on their language journey.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this incredible adventure. Until next time, happy learning.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe.
It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you.